Ask the Podcast Coach for August 8th, 2026.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it is Saturday morning. It is time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from TheAverageGuy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. If you were in Bellevue, Nebraska, you'd be getting ready for the big air show. You know, we're a mile from Offutt Air Force Base. They've been flying around all day. So you may hear them in my audio this morning. Just a warning, if you hear thunder, it's the Thunderbirds. Not really, but that seemed to make sense.
It's funny you say that. I have a very small airport at the end of my street. Oh. And they are also having some sort of, I forget what they called it, but it was like basically it just sounds like there's a bunch of bees outside, but it's, so which is fun because let's take a tangent. My brother has a traumatic brain injury from a car wreck, and for some reason when planes fly by, it really messes with his balance for whatever reason. It's really weird. And I told him, I said, dude, there's an air show this weekend. You might want to leave town.
leave town, book a hotel somewhere.
Yeah. But, if I was on a plane and I needed to chill out, there's one way to do that. And that, of course, is with a nice hot cup of coffee or tea or whatever you're drinking. And, of course, that coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Because, they're going to see you before they hear you. And I'm a repeat customer. He's made many, many graphics for all of my shows. And I am super happy with all of them, mainly because of the process. He sits down with you to kind of find out what's the vibe of your show. What are you looking for? Who's the audience? And then you let him do the marketing stuff. You're there to do the podcast thing. He comes back with a couple examples. And then you're like, okay, can we tweak that one? And he does, and you're happy for life. And the beauty of it is, if you think about it, if you do a podcast for 5 years, you're paying like peanuts for this by the time it's done. And hey, if you need a whole website or a PDF or business cards, it's all there. When you're ready to look good, just go over to podcastbranding.co and be sure to tell him that Dave and Jim sent you.
Cappuccino, hold the phone. Take me home.
And of course, big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. He's in the chat room every week. So Dan, thanks for coming out and doing that as well. The Odyssey is the most updated one, updated episode. I think last week, Dave, I think it was last week, right? I said I was going to see it.
Yeah.
We saw it Saturday night. It's okay. It's interesting. Like good cinematography. The photography is amazing. Like the filmmaking aspect of it's incredible. Right. So
my 2-word review was too long.
Yeah, I sensed that too, and it wasn't too long for me. You'll want to check it out if you've already seen it. Check out Dan's episode if you want to have that dialogue and discussion. We're not a movie review show, so we're not going to spend time doing that today. Check it out today, based on a true story at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. And as always, Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
And we do have a good question from Tim. It says, hey, Dave, will there be an Ask the Podcast Coach in 2 weeks while you're at Empowered Podcasting Conference 3? And that answer is no. So, Jim, you get to sleep in on the 23rd. I think is what that is.
August 23rd. Okay.
Let's say it's the 15th. Yeah, 23rd, 2 weeks from now. So I'm doing something really different for my talk, because it's kind of like what makes a good podcast. And I'm not going to say what I'm doing, but it's what's fun about it is this is either going to work like great, or it's just going to blow up in my face. Because I'm kind of referring to other things. And when you're not in a monoculture anymore, you're really easy to go, well, everybody's seen this movie. And then you find out, no. So when you go, well, everybody knows this. No, then you're like, okay. And then you start tap dancing and, going to town. So, So
it's like when you say, remember that episode of A-Team? And then everybody looks at you like, A-Team, what was that? And you're like, oh yeah,
I pity the fool.
we're pretty far away from the 80s culture these days. And that
Yes.
used to everybody used to know, but it doesn't. Now my daughter is a big A-Team fan, so she did all those references. But you know, you got to be, yeah, you do. I'll say something, you know, with my coworkers, and then they'll give me that look, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
that's old.
My favorite is when I was referring to Barney Fife to my stepson, and I said, "Way to go, Barney!" And he looked at me and goes, "You do know I have no idea what you're talking about." And I go, "Oh, that's right." I go, "Purple dinosaur," and he's like, "Still got no idea." I was like, "Okay, I'm old. Great, excellent." One of the things I thought I would throw at you, Mr. Cullison, being that you work a lot with, you work for a company that is synonymous with surveys,
Yeah.
is I am working with people. I'm launching this class this week. We're gonna do. I'm not really sure how many weeks, but we're gonna talk about growing your show at the School of Podcasting. Like I think it's Wednesday. We're gonna get together for an hour, and we're gonna like, hey, here's what we're doing. And it's interesting when I'm kind of setting people up for this, people that don't have Google Analytics on their website. Well, how are you going to measure if the website's working or not, or they're not checking this or they're not checking that? But I had a lot of people this week that I'm like, well, what kind of response did you get when you did a survey? And many people said, what do you mean survey? Which I just kept hearing the sad trombone. Just womp, womp, womp. Okay, well, there's again something we need to do. And then the other one is, I did a survey. I didn't get any results. And I keep hearing there's a song from the band Rush called Free Will. And it says, if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. And so if the idea was to see how engaged your audience is, now there are also ways you have to promote it more than once. You can't just at the end of your show go, oh, by the way, do a survey. It said, try and spell this.com _. No, you can't. Okay. Click, links in the show notes. So that there are many reasons why people won't, maybe you've made it harder to answer the survey, but do you have any tips on, because, it's still, what's a good survey percentage?
I think we still say 3% industry wise is what the industry says.
Yeah.
We get a little bit better results because we've been doing it for so long. But first of all, I have to say I'm not a survey researcher. I don't play one on TV, and I'm not paid to do that at work. Right?
You'll deal with the coaches more.
Yeah, my job. I'm a community manager for the coach community, and so that's really what I do. But we survey that coach community 3 times a year. And every other year we do a big demographic survey. Those are the harder ones. Actually, in some cases, those are easier, but big demographics. So we ask them a lot of questions about what they do and themselves, and then a bunch of questions. That survey is probably 25 or 30 minutes long for them to do that. The shorter surveys actually lately have been harder to get in for some reason. I don't know why. We do better than the 3%, but they're harder to get in. A couple things I've picked up along the way is one, your questions really matter. Like, if you're going to spend time on a survey, spend time on testing your questions. Make sure, don't just write 5 or 15 questions and in an evening and pump the questions out. Like, revise them. This would be a good AI thing to do. Give them to AI and say, hey, based on other things that are these good questions that I'm doing? That'd be some good AI research. Run them through. If you've got this is too strong of a word, but if you have like a board of directors for your podcast, your most engaged listeners, test that with them first. Make sure the questions actually make sense. They may make sense to you, but if there's an inside person, you're the inside of the inside, right? And oftentimes we get blind to our own, we are reading, as we're reading a sentence, we're reading things into the sentence because we understand what we want, but guess what? You didn't put enough words in there for them to understand what you want, right? So really, really focus on the terminology and what you write. Also, if you're going to do multiple surveys, make sure you use the same language each time. That way you can kind of trend those surveys, right? You can go back and say, well, I asked during this time, and now I've got, I asked 6 months later, or I asked a year later. Now I'm getting these kinds of trends. So make sure you hold on to that survey, like put it in a place where you can kind of get back to it. But for the most part, we're begging people to complete their surveys, and everybody wants to give it's crazy. Everybody wants to give opinions on Facebook and LinkedIn and some of those things. And yeah, John, this board of directors concept's not a bad idea. We recommend it for coaches and for coaching of like, who are your personal board of directors? Who are people you go to ask questions about?
Yeah.
And I actually recommend let them know, like Dave, I've never told this to you, but you would be on my board of directors. You're a trusted voice and influence in my life. Most importantly, you know me. We've had a 12-year relationship every single I mean, I spend more time with you than most people. Like that's just maybe not my coworkers, but most people, I mean, spend a lot of time with you when you think about an hour or an hour and a half every single week. So not a bad idea to get a board of directors put together for your podcast, but you're going to have to, like, you have to put the survey out, then you got to remind them and remind them again and remind them again. You have to beg a little bit. Sometimes a little incentive is helpful.
Yeah.
Right? So,
$20 Amazon card. So you can,
just how worth it is it to you, to get it.
You'll hear about this on the School of Podcasting episode that's coming up. I interviewed Glenn the Geek because they're up to 4,000 episodes. And I was like, how do you do for that? But one of the things
you do it every day. That's how you get there. Yeah.
And you don't quit. And he took his patrons, basically, he calls them auditors. But that's, and what's weird is he has a group of patrons that volunteer to listen to every show and leave a comment. And it's a daily show. So for 6 months, it's 180, something like that, episodes that you have to go in. And he's got people that are chomping at the bit because they know that any feedback they give to Glenn, it's going to make the show better. And so that's one of the things you kind of have to put forward. I've never thought of this. Craig from AI Goes to College says, in addition to getting AI to draft questions, you can ask AI to take the survey using different personas or avatars. This is a good way to pilot test the survey. That's a great idea. Yeah. That's because I have somebody now at Podpage, really nice guy, but will be the first to tell you, I don't know what I'm doing. And when he sends in questions, because he's really brand new to all this stuff, he's a little up there in the age range. So we get that. And, he said, what am I supposed to do with all these referrals? And I was like, referrals? Like what do you, and so finally after a couple back, he was getting people using his contact form. And I was like, oh, you mean the emails coming from the website? Yes. And I was like, okay, I would have never in my life called them referrals, but he's new to this. So that's a great example of sometimes, you think you're using really plain English, and then you get somebody who's, Uncle Marv says, I have an unofficial board of listeners and peers that tell me the truth. Yeah, you really, I had somebody, Daniel J. Lewis, I put out, I think it was this show where I said, we were talking about how A/B split testings on YouTube may confuse people. And instead of confuse, I think I said confuse, or I left out a letter somewhere, and he was like, hey, this is spelled wrong. So thank you, Daniel, for that. Ralph says, my new show, we're looking to build a school community, and we'll build a board of experiences. There's an idea. Excellent. Also Ralph found remember he was looking for a co-host, and then he found one and it kind of didn't work in the end. But Ralph says, I got a letter from a listener yesterday, which was amazing. And it reminded me why I do the show. Save that email, put it someplace with, make a pile of those. It was amazing to hear from someone who has been impacted by my work, and it makes the grind worth the time. Yeah, that almost sounds like a t-shirt. Make the grind worth the time. But it's one of those things where Dr. Brad Miller from Cancer and Comedy reached out and said, hey, you keep saying let somebody know when they deliver value. And he said, I really like that episode where we were talking about books for content creators. In fact, I got a lot. I'm going to put that on my front page. I had probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 people say that was a really good show, like unprompted. And that to me is the best, when you get somebody that just says, wow, that was good. We got hold on. Let me go back to that one. John says, I feel like I'm beating Dave over the head with AI. Oh, by the way, Craig, since you're here, I never got your invite. So send that on over. I feel like we are dragging Dave into the A world. I'm not kicking and screaming. It's just, I know it's going to take time. There's a learning curve there, and learning curves, they take time. And right now I just don't have a ton of that. Although I should, because I'm still battling back issues. And if I can just sit and do it, which is what AI is all about, that would work. But the Z-Man has a question. Is it wise to make the pilot episode that focused on letting people know a little bit about yourself and what to stand for first?
What you stand for first.
Oh, what you stand for first before giving the preview of the show. To make the focus on letting people know a little bit. It's pretty easy to, like, the minute, how do we say this without making this a political conversation? But if somebody says, hi, I'm Dave, I identify as he, him. There you go. I already know what side of the aisle that guy leads on. If I have another guy that says, my hobbies are shooting, so I'm not really, I don't know if I would lead off with that. I would somehow mix it in if you want to, but I don't really know that we care. You know what I mean? Until you say something that's controversial. So I'm not sure that's the best first impression. Hi, I'm Dave. I lean kind of right, but also a little left. I'm like, because in a brand new, go ahead.
Even if you come out of the gate hard with content, let's separate like the political aspect or whatever you're trying to do. But you come out of the gate hard on what you're going to cover from a topic standpoint. It kind of depends on what audience you've already gathered around you. I think, listen, if you're a brand new podcaster and you haven't built an audience yet, I would skip the pilot. Like, I would create a bunch of podcasts first that I throw away because those first ones are terrible. So make a bunch of podcasts. You can consider it a pilot if you want. Just toss them. Then start making a podcast and doing all the advertising that you need to do to get that ball rolling. There's no sense in a pilot podcast if there's no one in the forest to hear the tree fall, right? So don't worry about that pilot. Now, making a pilot episode actually may be super helpful to you in honing down what you're trying to do on your podcast. So you're still going to throw it away. Trust me, you're still going to throw it away. So if that's the case, that's my recommendation is make a bunch of podcasts, throw them all away, and then get started. If you already have an existing audience, that pilot could be helpful in advertising.
Well,
right.
And when it's a pilot episode, if you mean trailer, none of it. The trailer is what's the show, who's it for, and how am I going to benefit? You can mix in your personal stories later because he says, I'm not talking politics. I'm talking Yeah, then we don't care. I don't really, like, I could listen to Home Gadget Geeks and not know that Jim lives, out west. Do I care? No. What I care is he's talking about, some new, blender that works with your phone,
robot lawnmower,
robot. Yeah. So
robot water. I can't even say it. Window washer. Those are kind of getting popular.
Yeah. I have a guy that I'm working with right now, and he's doing, I would call it an alternative religious show. It's not your typical.
Sure.
And there's a lot about, like, he can't use AI and a couple other things. But he's really, he according to him, he's like, I have to disclose this stuff up front. And I'm like, okay. Because as always, it depends.
Yeah.
So, it's just not, the audience typically doesn't care. I know when it always drives me nuts. Look, you need to introduce your guest, but like, people don't realize that by you bringing them on, you've already kind of knighted them worthy to be on the show. So I don't really, and when they start off and they read their entire LinkedIn bio, I'm like, I don't really, it's like, hey, our guest today is Dave Jackson. He was a paper boy when he was 14. Like, no, we don't care. So, maybe just get to that point. Going back to surveys, our buddy, and oh, by the way, our newest awesome supporter. Let me get these going. Last week I kept saying his website, and it turns out Jeff is going through a rebrand. So his website is creatornewslive.com. And now if you go to that, it will go to his current show, but he is going through a rebrand. So Jeff, thanks for being an awesome supporter. And I said his website, not really wrong because they both redirect each other, but I was like, well, let's use the right thing. He says, if you're doing a survey, how long should you, easy for me to read. How long should you promote it before you consider it done?
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. And heavy promotion. I know they've already heard it, but
you're sick of it. You're sick of it on day one. Like you're like, oh my gosh, do I have to do this again? Yeah, you got to do it again. And it's 4 to 6 weeks, friends. Like you'd love to think you could do it in 2. Not enough time. There's just, your listeners are not as up to date on your podcast as you are. That's just, they're weeks behind in some cases. And in some cases, depending on the content, how long you go, the longer your podcast, the farther they are behind, right? Just the way it is. And so you've got to you'll have an early rush, you'll have your most engaged listeners, boom, they'll hit that survey and you're like, this is rocking. And then it just falls off a cliff a week into it. And that you get frustrated because that number just kind of rides, the steady, again, depends how many you have, but this steady kind of low, much lower than it was in the beginning. Then you may see this kind of slow rise to the end. And you'll be like, they got to be sick of hearing me say this. And they are, but you just got to keep saying it because you got to reach everybody. So 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I've noticed is, I think I mentioned this last week. There's a movie called I Play Rocky about the making of the movie Rocky that's coming out in November. And they started promoting it last month. So that's 4 months. Mm-hmm. And the new superhero movie is in December, so longer than you think.
Dune 3 they started promoting during Dune 1.
Yeah.
Jeez. Which I have right here. Right, but by the way, I've got both movies here. I need to watch them.
I tried
my homework.
I tried very hard, and when I had to pull out a scorecard to keep track of who was what, I was like,
it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Randy says it gets even worse when podcasters ask their guests to introduce themselves. Yeah.
Listen, I know we say that. I disagree. I aggressively disagree about that. I actually think that guests introduce themselves better than you ever could. And I think most people default to the bio. They read the bio, and it's boring and nobody's listening. Like, as soon as you're like, let me tell you a little bit about my guest, Dave Jackson. He's an award-winning, and we
okay, I get that.
The guest gets embarrassed because they're like, you've gone over the top trying to say how great they are, and then the guest kind of comes in all kind of like shy and sheepish because you've said all these great things about him. Not that it's wrong, right? And I'm not saying you don't say anything. It's like, I got Dave here. Dave, why don't you take a second and introduce yourself? I think there's an opportunity to be like, hey, my guest today is Dave Jackson. He's an award-winning and Hall of Fame podcaster. Dave, thanks for coming. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, Dave, let's get to know you through your eyes. Tell me a little bit about your background, what you did. What's the most important things to you? And I really think it's a great question to get your guest warmed up. Now, you may edit that part out, just to be honest. You may take that out of
That's
what
true, too.
But it gets the guest warmed up with what they know the best, and that is them. And so I greatly disagree that like when you ask the guest to introduce themselves, I don't think that's a mistake. I actually think that's a benefit.
I like the idea of let them introduce themselves and then cut it out. And then because in theory, I agree with one thing you said, reading their bio is boring.
Let's fight. Yeah.
Reading it, but So instead, you should be explaining why you're truly excited to have them on the show. And if you're not truly excited to have them on the show, why are they on the show?
Yeah. There's middle ground in there, and depending on your audience and how well you know 'em, my guests come back. Like I have a rotating host guest list, and so I've stopped introducing them, because the folks know them that are on there, right? So I don't do that every time. But I do think there's some value in the guest spending some time getting warmed up, talking about themselves, and not shooting out of the gate. Because what I find when we come out of the gate just guns blazing, they are super bad. They're like, blah, blah. Let them talk, let them warm up, then ask them the hard question.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Let's fight.
Randy says, my comment was the double introduction. Oh, I love this. Hey, on today's show, we're going to have Jim Cullison. He's this great guy. I'm going to read you the bio. And then my first question to him is, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
100% mistake. Yeah, I agree.
No, do not do that. Let's see here. Daphne says, allow your honored guest to reveal autobiographical details through the conversation. There you go. Instead of just doing that. Yeah, that's, we could go anyway. Craig says AI is a softball warm-up. Yep, that you can always edit out later. That's true. Just start. How would your best friend describe you? That's an interesting question. Dan says, I never have my guest on for their intro. I respect their time. I can record that quick one sentence setup later. My topics are never about the guest either, so they never introduce themselves. It's a good point. There you go. Yeah, I've done that. I'll be like, hey, I'll just introduce you later. Because it is kind of weird when somebody's like, hey, Jim is the best thing since sliced bread. His dog name is Pepper, and his wife calls him Schmoopy. Like what? And they're just like, let's just get. And I sometimes I will say, hey, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, when did you know you wanted to start a podcast? And they'll be like, okay. And I'll be like, all right, I'm just going to do your intro later. All right, so you ready to go? All right, hey, Jim, thanks for coming on the show. And Jim would say,
it's great to be here, Dave.
And I would go, all right, so when did you know you wanted to start a podcast, and what got you in? And then just go from there. So as always, do your own show.
It depends.
Ralph has a great point. Do that at the pre-call. Your audience wants value.
Yeah, but there can be a lot of value in the intro. Just there are some things about your guest that the audience needs to know. And if they don't bring them up, you've got an opportunity to do that, right? I mean, you can do both in one. Hey, as we get started, I know you can also prime the pump with them to make sure that you're getting what you want from them. It's way more powerful when they say it than when you say it. And so you can say, hey, tell me about, hey, tell us a little bit about this experience that you had with this that's related to the show. Or we have you here today because of your expertise on this. Give us a little bit of the background. Like, how did you get to where you are on this subject, right?
Bingo. That's a good one.
And boom, then you can start bringing them in right there on that. There's all kinds of different ways to get that part done. I like the first words the guest's saying to be easy, right? I want them to win the very first time they open their mouth. Because if they're on their heels for the whole interview, like you've done this before, you started wrong and then you're on your heels and you're embarrassed. You're like, oh, I really blew that one, like kind of thing. It's tough to pull them back,
The other thing, this is a weird, but it's handy sometimes. If you have somebody on that always says the story, whatever it is, and you don't want them to do that because you've heard it on every other show, do it in the intro.
Yes.
And say, when they were growing up, they did this and that and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And today we're here to talk about such and such. I'm like, guess what? I just told that story. You don't need to say it again. For
sure.
Uncle Marv says I do both. I start with a couple lines about them, one nugget from the bio, and then ask them to finish. There you go. Let's see. Dan says beginning icebreaker part doesn't make it to the final recording. Yeah, we chit chat for a bit before we get going in. Kyle's back. That's the good news.
Yeah. Hey,
been a long time since I watched Ask the Podcast Coach using Jim's YouTube channel today.
It worked.
Yeah, we're doing both. Dave, are you using the Rode Pod mic? Yes, I am. I've been thinking about getting the Rode Pod mic. Yes, I have that. My favorite mic is too far out of my reach. It's the Electro Voice RE320. But I kind of like this one, and I actually have a SM7B, the Joe Rogan microphone, and I like my voice on this one, so that's why I use it.
Thanks for coming over. This I shared since we're on StreamYard, and other things can do this as well. I shared out to my live channel this morning just to be like, who from my audience will come in? If we get enough, maybe I'll do it on a regular basis.
Oh, here's another good one. Craig from Ingleus podcast. I always ask my guests, how do you want to be introduced?
That's a great idea, Craig. Yeah.
Please call me
Ask
Schmoopy.
them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how do you want me to introduce you? Right. By the way, some are expecting you to read their bio. Like there's a group who want their bio read, and you better read it. Right. So even though I don't like that, I don't like the reading of the bio, they're expecting it. So that's really good advice of come to them and say, hey, what's the expectation here? What's best for you?
That sounds like something you would do in church. Please stand for the reading of the bio. Everyone together. Yes. Dave was born. Yeah. Craig has another one. Also, how to correctly pronounce their name.
Yes.
Yeah. I have had people, I forget what her last name was. And she says, a lot of people get it wrong. It's this. And I was like, okay. And I said her name like 3 times. And then I said, please welcome to the show. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and she just started laughing. She's like,
record yourself saying it correctly. Like in the practice, record that so that you can dub it back in. I got lucky one time and did that. At some point, I did pronounce it correctly. And then I just dubbed it back in afterwards because I really botched it. It was that's my Achilles heel. I got to tell you guys, names, I just trip. I'll practice them all week, and then I'll get to it, and it'll just blah, 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 blah. I can say everything else, but so I don't know if you struggle with that. That's certainly my Achilles heel for sure.
I can't say the word advocate. I had to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some words that I just, yep, so it's tricky how that goes. Here's a fun question from Craig from AIGoesToCollege.com. Have any of you ever released a book as a set of podcast episodes? In other words, 1 chapter per episode. Well, kids, get handy. Let me see. If you Google Scott Sigler, this is a great story. Scott combined fiction. No, it was horror and fiction. Yeah, or something, because most horror is fiction. Oh, science fiction and horror. That was it. I remember it was something that wasn't your typical thing. And all the publishers are like, you can't mix sci-fi and horror. That'll never work. What are you, crazy kid? And so he knocked on all these doors. And for the record, by the way, the Beatles were turned down by every record label when they first started out. So Scott was like, well, crap, I guess I'm not going to get a publisher. And he put out every chapter as a podcast. And it was called Earth Core. And people started calling it Earth Crack because they're like, when's the next chapter coming out? Oh, yeah. And so when the book was finally done, and I think he might have actually tweaked, I'd have to ask him next time I see him. I think he tweaked some of the book because people are like, hey, is so-and-so going to do this in the next chapter? And he was kind of like, well, they weren't, but they are now. But anyway, when the book was over, he said, hey, I'm going to put this as a paperback on Amazon. And if you enjoyed this book, could you do me a favor and buy it on this date? Or if you know somebody that would enjoy the book, but they don't know what a podcast is because it was like 2006 or 7, you could buy them a book or 2. And that book was number 2 on all of Amazon. And it would have been number 1, except for this other little book that you may have heard of called Harry Potter. And there's a video of Scott, and he's like, I hate that kid. But consequently then, by him selling so many books on Amazon, his next book got a publisher because proven concept. And the fun thing was Scott still put it out as a podcast. And I think he still does for most of his shows. Scott Sigler is his name. Hall of Fame podcaster, Scott Sigler. So yeah, it's been done. It's weird because you're giving away your content. That's the part that's like, yeah, but I want them to buy the book. And if the book's already done, that could be like, okay, this is chapter 1. We'll have chapter 2 out in a week or 2. If you want to read the whole book and not wait, go to, my
I think most
website.com.
fans will want the book, right? This is the,
Yeah.
I think, it's like one of those, like, no, I want the book too. So even though you're putting it out as podcasts, some people I've got a couple books behind me. I think when Emily was doing Based on True Story, not Based on True Story, but that's Dan's podcast. Behind the Story? No,
it was, oh man.
The story behind. There we go.
The story behind. There we go.
Story behind. I love that. That was one of my favorite podcasts for a long time. And they put a book out, and I bought the book. Like, a lot of stuff I heard on the podcast, but I wanted to have the book. So I think both works. I think sometimes we're worried about giving it away, and that's actually what people want. They want more. If they like it, they want more. And so, anyways, Emily, thanks for doing that work.
Yeah. John Germango says, I just asked Claudette, that's his Claude chatbot, to help me design a listener survey for my podcast. She asked me 6 questions and spit out 20 questions for the survey, and it's pretty good. He says, I think I'll use it. So there you go. And Dan says, hey, wait, you can't mix science or sci-fi and horror. How about Alien, Predator, Terminator, The Thing? Yeah. Well, these were book publishers. I guess they hadn't thought of that. And this was like 20 years ago. So maybe but even back then, that would have made 2000s. You're right. Well, I mean, when did the first Alien movie come out?
30 years, 40 years.
Yeah. So that's still kind of,
Sigourney still looking great, by the way.
Yeah.
After all those years.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the other thing we need to do today, if I can find my button, here it is. Jim has a topic. So.
And now, he's been waiting for this. It's time for Jim to get his nerd on.
As you know, I've been spending a lot of time with OpenClaw Hermes working on some AI stuff. One of the things today or this morning, as I was doing some cleanup, it prompted me. It was looking at a post that I had written back in 2023 in the early days of AI, right when In a World came out on every single, like if you were having AI write your stuff for you or getting help in a world or in an ever-changing world. That was another one that I used all the time, in an ever-changing world. And it just kind of reminded me, you may want to go back and check from that era some of the AI work that if you let AI do, and it's fine if you did. I'm not saying you shouldn't have. We were all just trying new things out. But it's a good opportunity to go back and review. The other reminder for me was that I have a lot of Amazon affiliate links on my site, and sometimes those break, right? I've created a kind of an Amazon affiliate manager for myself in OpenClaw. You don't have to do that. But you need to find some way to go through your site and check your Amazon affiliate links. As I've done that over the last, 2 months, guess what's gone up in my metrics? My Amazon affiliate relationships. As I've gone and repaired, like there were links that were just flat out wrong. And then there were links in there where I didn't have the right affiliate relationship code in there, or the most current one that's in there. And then there's some I just missed that could have been Amazon affiliate relationship stuff that I just missed. And so OpenClaw has been helping me fix all of those, go through. That's kind of a great way to do it. There's other ways to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but it's certainly convenient to do it that way. But I've watched over the last 3 months my Amazon, marketably more, and that makes sense, right? You fix some links, you get some things, rewrite some stuff. So on your site, as you're thinking about what you're doing, there may be some opportunities. Like it's not always one and done, right? I have found on the journey with OpenClaw, I've actually found the most helpful. Now I'm using, last week, I actually went end to end from the very beginning to the very end of my posting process for the show using AI. So using OpenAI and Claude to help me, and OpenClaw to help me work through that whole process. And that was end to end, first time ever. A lot of folks when OpenClaw first came out, were thinking of it from that usage. And yes, that does work. It's an enormous amount of work to get it there. Let me just tell you, this isn't like I'm going to say 3 words and then it's going to magically work for me in my posting process. No, there's a lot to it, right? So if you're going in to do this kind of stuff, I have a lot of respect for these platforms now that do all this AI stuff for you, right? Of getting those prompts right, some of those kinds of things. But you also may want to think about, if your site's been around a while, you also might want to think about, especially in my sense where I don't do reviews, but I've got tech content that's constantly changing, that I may want to create some kind of review process to go back and say, hey, is that information accurate? Hey, could that information be updated? I'd done a 2023 post on a Jackery battery.
Yeah.
That lots changed since 2023 on those batteries, right? And to be honest with you, the editorial that was a AI assisted, and the AI in 2026 kind of said that AI in 2023 was pretty weak. It's like, oh, you might want to fix a few things, right? So, however you choose to do this, as we get closer here to the end of the year, and we think about site hygiene and cleaning some things up, that if you're dependent on Amazon affiliate links on your site, that may be something you want to look at, get some systematic way to get those looked at. And then 2, you might want to fact check some of the things that you said 4, 5, 6 years ago. By the way, Google doesn't care how old it is sometimes. If it's got authority, it will pick it up. And I think it gets particularly important in this world of AI as we get those things picked up. I mean, listen, the written world on websites has taken a hit because of AI. Right. More folks are staying on AI platforms. It's not the days of SEO where you go to, you put a search term in at Google and then it gives you links and you click on a link. Friends, those days are coming to a close, right? So we have to kind of think through, can we be the authority for AI? And not all AIs do this, but some push back to the authority source for those. And so I think it's important. If you're going to write, if you're going to do the written word, I think you may want to do some double checking and some looking there.
There you go. Yeah, one of the things I use is this. Now, did that show up on the screen? Oh, it will when I do this. Is Genius Link. And if I can, I want to share the screen before presenting. Well, at least it's letting me know what I'm doing wrong. Before presenting a screen, remove. Oh, do I? Okay, if you say so. There we go. Oh, that's really not much to look at. But anyway, Genius Link, I go in, I put in just a direct link to that, and I give it my affiliate thing. So you can see here where I did an episode a couple weeks ago about all these books, and not a ton of, 2 clicks, 3 clicks, 4 clicks, 4 clicks, 4 clicks. But if I actually come in here I know there's a way I can sort these by clicks. And like I have seen where I have given Tom Webster over 1,000 clicks to the book the audience is listening. And what's cool about Genius Link is if for some reason I'm linking to something and either if I like my affiliate link for the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 probably shows out of stock because they quit making it. So I can go in and put a different link in the Genius Link so that I'm not sending people to a dead thing. So that's and also just on the AI front, when I did that episode and all these people sent in all these books, I was like, oh man, now I got to go dig out all these links. And I just took the transcript and threw it in and said, hey, go find these links on Amazon. And so it did. And I was like, okay, put it into Genius Link, which is now an affiliate link, put it back in, and I can track and see which books were more popular, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, very, very cool stuff.
And now,
oh, wow. Okay. I can't turn that one off.
Were you going to do a power rant?
No, I was trying to, I was going to play, I hit the wrong button, but that one is not one I was going to roll out our thing with.
Awesome.
I was going to do this at the end.
Time for Jim to get his.
I need a version of that at the end that says like, that was, Jim getting his nerd on or whatever.
Is that too nerdy? That was, it's
no.
Listen, that subject is a nerd one for sure. I appreciate you guys being patient with me. But we could do our awesome.
Yeah, that's right. We should say thanks to our awesome supporters. You can go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and see them for yourselves. It's people like Craig over at AI Goes to College, and Chris Stone at castahead.net, and Glenn over at horseradionetwork.com, and all these people, they're there. askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. The show is also brought to you by the School of Podcasting.com. And as you heard me say, we're starting a live class. I guess next week. It's still Saturday. All based on growing. So if you're not happy with your growth, go over to schoolofpodcasting.com. Use the coupon code COACH. And remember, that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And when you're looking at askthepodcastcoach.com or schoolofpodcasting.com, those are using Podpage. And you can try Podpage for 2 weeks for free. Go over to trypodpage.com. And if you need more Jim Collison, and hey, who doesn't? You can go over to theaverageguy.tv and check out Home Gadget Geeks. How long have you been doing that show, Jim?
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
And he's in the chat room right now. The one and only Dr. Brad Miller is the man behind podindy.com. That is Saturday, November 7th. I know Tim was talking about how he missed the event that Joe Pardo used to do. This is very much like that. It is an intimate gathering of people. And it's all the beautiful thing about this one. It's a one-day event. It's on a Saturday, 9 to 4. And my buddy Cliff Ravenscraft is going to be doing a workshop on taking, things to the next level. And if you never heard Cliff, there is only one Cliff, and that's another guy that's been doing it forever and has tons of information. And it's Whiteland, Indiana. And if you're like, I've never heard of it, well, then just call it Indianapolis because it's close. But you can find out all that information at podindy.com. And there will be I do this every week. There is a coupon code, which if you go into the show notes, you can actually click on a link and there will be a coupon code. And it's already dirt cheap anyway. But there's even now a coupon code, because I remember it's something like Pacer or something, that it's not Ask or it's not SOP. And so consequently, I can't remember it because, well, old, I guess. I don't know.
You're going to put it in the show notes? Like
it is in the show notes. So if you go back, like this is episode number 589. If you go right now to school or askthepodcastcoach.com, 588, it's in the show notes of that particular episode. So So podindy.com, I will be there, and it's time to go to the Wheel O' Names. And the beautiful part of this is it's already sharing. I've learned this lesson last week because I have to stop sharing the slides to put the Wheel O' Names on this. And I can now go, hey, just share this tab, and we're over to the Wheel of Names. So who will it be? Will it be Chris or Shane or Jody or all these people? Well, we're going to spin the wheel and find out. It looks like it's going to be, could it be Ed, or is it going to be Ralph? It is going to be Ralph. The one and only content creator's accountant, RalphEstepJr.com is where you can find his stuff. If that's too many letters to type, just go to AskRalph.com and it will take you to the Ralph Estep Jr. empire. This man knows accounting. He knows business. In fact, I had somebody this week that said, hey, should I join the School of Podcasting? Is there anybody there to network with? And they said, I have questions about AI and I need to know how to run my business better. And I go, do we know people? Have you ever heard of Craig from AI Goes to College? Have you ever heard of Ralph Estep Jr., the content creator's accountant? And they probably still, yes, here it is. Pacer. Pacer is, there we go. Pacer is the coupon. See, that makes sense because it's Indiana. There you go. It's a basketball thing. Beautiful. I knew there was a coupon. So anyway, so if you have found this show to save you time, save you money, save you headaches, maybe you learned something, maybe we made you smile, just go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and become an awesome supporter today. And so let me check the chat room here. We talked about the book thing. Ralph got a new microphone. He's gone, basically he switched to an RE27. And I just got the Chameleon Legendary angry audio mic processor. That's from Cornelius Gold. His friends call him CG, and I call him a member of the School of Podcasting. So there's another cool person in the School of Podcasting. Join today. Speaking of AI, we can let me go this, and we will share this fun-filled question. And I thought it was kind of weird. He says, I'm starting a podcast on a tight budget. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that. AI told me to skip the mic, okay, record on my phone, and clean it up with Adobe Enhance. I tried it. The audio sounds completely muffled, robotic, and muddy. Is it my room acoustics, or is recording with just a phone a terrible idea? Ding, 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 ding. Has anyone made this work, or is buying a real mic a non-negotiable? And so I listened, it's a show called SEO for people that don't like SEO. And the host is the name he gives is Meredith's husband. And he's been an SEO for decades. And he made a good point because somebody brought up some SEO advice that it got from AI. Now, remember, there's a lot of really good stuff, really good advice on the internet about every topic. And there's some really bad advice on the internet about every topic. And the AI sometimes will find really bad content and deliver it in a very confident way. I've never heard AI go, hey, Dave, I think this might work. I don't know. You could try it. Not really sure. It's always, no, do this, step 1, step 2, step 3. It says it very confidently. And because, it's a computer, we believe it. And so we do it. So the advice of use your phone as a microphone is I don't have anything else answer. Okay. But other than that, and especially, I'm going to guess this guy put it on speaker, which is also, it's, if you're going to invest in anything for your show, it's your microphone and your media host. Yeah. I was like, here we go. Craig says it would work better if you hold the phone like a phone. Yes, there's a novel idea. That being said, if you can't spring for an inexpensive mic, you're not likely to keep podcasting. Yeah, it's $80 for a Samson Q2U. And if that's too much money, that's one of the things that's kind of, I get it that we like to do stuff for free, but if you go bowling, that costs money. If you go golf, it costs a lot of money. If you want to go play Frisbee, a Frisbee's going to run you $8, probably more than that.
8?
Yeah.
Maybe in 1980, like $20.
I haven't bought a Frisbee in a while.
Good one.
So yeah, I mean, and the other thing to keep in mind, and Jim, I heard somebody else this week said the same thing you always say, AI works. Like it'll be perfect for like 8 times. Oh, yeah. And then it just forgets everything I've taught it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And so,
but it's intended to be that way. Like you have to be smarter than the AI, right? It's intended to forget. Like that's a feature. We know these, like they're clearing out contexts all the time. And so there's no promise of it remembering. If you want it to remember, now some of them have memory pieces built into them, right? You can say, remember this and it will remember it. But if you just have a conversation with it, chances are that conversation's going away, right? Again, it depends on what you have in your service and what you bought and some of those kinds of things. But forgetting it's pretty common. Pretty common.
Well, and I get it because I hear people that will actually say, well, I'm on episode 17, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, I like to take comments about podcasting and take them out of podcasting to go, let's evaluate that statement. So when you started driving a car, did you just get in and go, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go out on the freeway and see what happens? No, like the first time you do anything, you typically try to come out with a little bit. And granted, they could say, well, I listened to a bunch of them. But when you don't know what you're doing in the age of internet, and that's where maybe part of the problem is, like on one hand, the internet has great information, however you're getting it via Google, via Perplexity, via AI and Claude and Claudette and, ChatGPT. but that's where I think a human can come in handy, because as we say, every podcast question begins with the phrase, it depends. And I'm not sure AI can figure out when it depends this way or when it depends that way. It's, kind of interesting that way. Yeah, Craig says there's context engineering and prompt engineering. Yeah, two different things. And
well, and a lot of folks are trying to use to Ralph's comment there. A lot of folks don't realize what they're doing. Like they think it's a be all end all.
oh,
Like I could say, I mentioned this earlier. I can say 3 words and it's just going to do magic. And you're like, no, it's still a tool. Still's got some capabilities of things it can and can't do. You fundamentally need to understand what you're using and how you're using it. By the way, I think this is going to change over time. But right now we're in that weird transitionary phase where people are like expecting, and listen, I was too in the early days as I started using AI. I was like, why is it forgetting everything? It's only till I learned like, okay, it's actually designed to do that, right? That you would, so some of it incredibly powerful. I'm not looking back. It's doing some amazing things to make me more productive. I'm more productive than I've ever been. Like I don't know where these lazy people are, but I am more productive than I have ever been using this thing. Putting out better work, more consistent work, things spelled right, those kinds of things, right? I'm thinking more than I ever have. You got to think like, okay, how could I use, what kind of engineering things could I do to make this work in my favor? I go to bed with my head hurting more often now from oh, that was a lot of work,
yeah.
Brain work. So I don't know, maybe it's staving off, memory issues for the future by using it now. I don't know how people are being lazy with it because it's making me work hard, to be honest.
One of the things, I've done this twice. It's not like part of my workflow all the time, but if I have a bunch of stuff that I've researched, I will just talk it into my phone, or I'll talk it into a mic or whatever. I will throw it into Otter, because Otter has ChatGPT in the back end of it, have it transcribed, and then say, hey, I kind of did a brain dump here on this subject. So I know what the subject is. I go, can you, organize this in a bunch of bullet, and I already have my idea of what the flow should be. And there've been a couple of times when I'm like, oh, you know what? That is a better flow. That makes more sense. Yeah. And so it might be something I do more frequently, where I'm like, because it looks at it, it doesn't have emotion. So that's the big thing I always have to keep in mind. But in just terms of like, this makes more sense to cover this topic before that topic. And one time it said, this is a great episode, but you tacked on this thing from Ray Ortega and it doesn't really fit with the rest of the show. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And so I cut it. I was like, okay, shorter show this week. Dan says, I think the thing, honest, I clicked on show. I think the thing is a lot of people want it to do the work for you. It's often marketed as such, let AI do all the work for you. I saw a thing on podcasting. It's like, you could have a podcast and never record a thing. Like, well, then you don't really have a podcast. Like, you don't, something does. He says, so they want to be lazy, just letting AI do it. Yeah. Everybody, I was in a meeting and we were talking about, changing some things. And somebody just said, well, can't AI do all that? And like, that seemed to be the answer. And we're like, no, that's not how the internet works.
Yeah.
So,
well, and Craig's comment, right, about critical thinking skills, I'm hearing this a lot too. I think this is our fault that I think more critically today than I've ever thought in my career using AI. And so I think as we think about the next generation and them learning, by the way, they'll learn this as they go, that it's actually enables us to do more critical thinking, not less. Because you have to kind of think, listen, if we think just writing papers is critical thinking, that was a mistake to begin with, right? We need to use these tools to help make that process faster and better. And I think it can. I think we just have to approach the way we're learning differently. And so I think like, again, in the last couple of years, my thinking's gotten infinitely better. And I'm thinking more critically than I ever have. I'm spending time engineering things. No one taught me to do that. I did it because I needed to do it. Those tools allowed me to do it. And I think we have to stop saying things like, oh, it's just making us all lazy, and start telling people, hey, there's some great ways to use this
Right.
to make things better, right?
Yeah.
To be more efficient, to think more critically. We have to stop telling people it's making us lazy and start telling people, you could really use this for some great thinking.
Yeah, Jeff says I'm doing things I've never thought I could
100%.
or had time for. He Jeff C made a animation of him and Katie from Ecamm for a show they do whose name is escaping me. I'm sorry, Jim, but I just remember it's like claymation, but it's and Jeff's not, that's not his skill. And yet he made this really cool intro where Katie comes up and Jeff's in this little cabin and they go in and knit stuff or something. It was like, wait, where did this come from? But it was cool. So, Jeff's into the video thing. So that's even better. Yeah. And Ralph says, Claude is making me money every day and making me much more productive. Yeah, so yeah, it's not all, it's
Listen, challenge people and they will find a way to use it critically. You just got to challenge them, right? You got to challenge. Listen, early on when we started talking about OpenClaw, I was like, snooze, like whatever, it's the next AI thing. Whoa, boy, was I wrong. And I started to throw challenges at it like, hey, I've created some pretty crappy things on the internet. Can you help me fix those? Help me make those better. And it's not just rewriting it for me. It's going in there and saying, hey, you could have done this better and we could have done this better. Let me help you. And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. Let me help you do that. And I'm making better content because of it. So I know we're short on time here, Dave.
That's right. Jeff says the name of that show that I was trying to remember, thank you, The Maker's Table. And then John says, is anyone teaching children critical thinking? I know two. Jordan Harbinger and Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn, when his kid comes up and goes, Daddy is broken, Pat goes, okay, what did you do to try to fix this so far? He doesn't want them to just like, Daddy fixes everything. He's like, no, what did you do so far? Okay, well, what do you want to try first? And I was like, will you adopt me? Pat Flynn, I want you to be my dad. I was like, man, that sounds like good parenting going on over there. One last thing here. Here's something to try after working through a decision with AI. Ask it to identify your hidden assumptions that help form your decision. This is a great way to improve critical thinking skills. And of course, for more great AI insights, go over to the awesome supporter and member of the School of Podcasting at AI Goes to College. So very, very cool. Jim, what's coming up on Home Gadget Geeks?
Actually, Little Story had a complete fail this week. So live show scheduled, guest was there. I'm on Restream. We could not make it work for whatever reason.
Wow.
Old Jim would have forced it. Old Jim would have been like, we're going to do this show. Let's just make a bad one. New Jim was like, hey, friend, this isn't going to work tonight. We tried a whole, we were troubleshooting it for about 45 minutes. Let's just schedule for 2 weeks from now. He's like, yeah, sounds good. So we scheduled and took the rest of the night off. So you too don't have to make a podcast when things are not going your way. And I didn't. So I took the week off. There you go.
And Lead with Jim asked a question. I just copied that for next week. Awesome. On the School of Podcasting, I will be interviewing the one and only Glenn Hebert, another awesome supporter who has done 4,000 episodes, which makes my brain hurt. On his show, Horses in the Morning. And so we're going to talk about how do you not get burned out? Where did you get your stuff? What was cool, it was kind of an added bonus. His co-host used to be on the radio. And so I talked to her a bit about, okay, what's the differences between radio and podcasting? Which one's more fun? There is one big difference, and that was she was making really nice money on the radio because she was on like the morning drive, kind of show, and those people make money. Now, the guy that's doing the 2 a.m. shift, in the middle of, Poughkeepsie is probably not pulling in bank, but that's what's coming up on the School of Podcasting. So yeah, just a reminder, we will be back next week, but we won't be here the 23rd. We'll be at Empowered Podcasting Conference. So until next week, take care, be safe. Don't drive and phone yourself or film yourself. That's driving me crazy. We'll see you next week.